If Twitter traffic and blog posts are any indication, the halftime show at the Super Bowl several weeks ago bombed. It topped the charts in the category Worst Super Bowl Halftime Show Ever. The Black Eyed Peas, a wildly popular hip-hop group, known for their infectiously singable tunes and boundless energy on stage, put on an inexplicably dreadful performance. They didn't provoke controversy, like Janet Jackson's so-called wardrobe malfunction a few years ago that scandalously bared a breast before a national audience. No controversy this time. Everyone agrees. The Peas scored a new low. Their sound was terrible, Fergie forgot how to sing, and all the dancers tapped into their inner Tin Man. One of the Peas' most popular songs is I Got a Feeling, for which they won a Grammy 2 years ago for Best Pop Vocal Performance. It's one of their best tunes and conveys one of their most telling messages. I've got a feeling that tonight's going to be a good night, the opening chorus proclaims. The verses that follow specify the evening's activities. Tonight's the night. Let's live it up. I got my money. Let's spend it up. Go out and smash it like, oh my God. Jump off that sofa. Let's get off. I know that we'll have a ball if we get down and go out and just lose it all. I feel stressed out. I want to let it go. Let's go way out spaced out and losing all control. Fill up my cup, mazel tov. Look at her dancing, just take it off. Let's paint the town, we'll shut it down. Let's burn the roof, and then we'll do it again. Let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, and do it, and do it. Let's live it up, and do it, and do it, and do it, do it, do it. Let's do it, and do it, and do it. I think you get the idea. By the way, the tune may be hard to resist, and it is. But the message, hard to accept. The strip club aesthetic of the music video highlights the explicit misogyny of hip-hop culture, with its often violent lyrics and lewd choreography. Here's the problem. Hip-hop holds up a mirror to the patriarchal underpinnings of Western culture. In so doing, it reinforces the belief that women exist mainly for the visual and sexual pleasure of men. Hip-hop also expresses the deep anger of a generation whose social security, so to speak, is threatened by trillion-dollar deficits, and whose economic prospects are dominated by the fact that more African American men are now in prison than in college, and half of all new jobs being created today pay less than $13 per hour. If I were a teenager trapped by meager circumstances, I'd be angry too. For obvious reasons, most of us would rather focus on the issue of breast exposure on national television or a stripper pole in a music video than on the consequences of patriarchy or the reality of our economically divided nation. Those who prefer music videos in a somewhat more traditional form, opera, it's typically called, face a similar conundrum. Murder, rape, and other forms of destructive mayhem are commonplace throughout the operatic canon, along with excessive drinking and sexual debauchery. Benjamin Britten's chamber opera, The Rape of Lucretia, even adds religious insult to sexual injury. When Lucretia kills herself after having been raped, the female chorus rightly despairs of this horrific tragedy. The male chorus, however, ends the story by insisting that the suffering of Christ redeems sin and gives meaning to pain. The war against women, in other words, did not begin with hip-hop. Sometimes the truth about who we are, both as individuals and as a culture, is painful to confront. Music can implicate our actions and challenge our assumptions. But music can also express our joys and our sorrows, our hopes and our fears, our delight and our world weariness. At its best, music expresses in sounds and images what we cannot express in words alone. Music is the language of the heart. In preparation for All Souls at sundown next week, I've been rereading the poetry of William Wordsworth, one of the leading poets of the Romantic age. As a movement in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Romanticism was a reaction against the rationalism of the Enlightenment. After the Enlightenment had wrested truth from the clutches of the church, many thinkers followed Immanuel Kant, who insisted that truth could be found only through the deductions of reason and the inquiries of science. Other thinkers, however, joined a backlash against the objectivity of reason. Known as Romanticism, this movement emphasized feeling and immediate experience. Romantic philosophers and poets celebrate the life of the imagination. They exalt emotion over reason and elevate the senses over the intellect. They focus on the self, on the inner passions and struggles. Not surprisingly, musical themes abound in Romantic poetry. Wordsworth's poem titled "The Solitary Reaper" is one of his best. It describes a young woman alone in a highland field, reaping and binding grain. All the while she sings to herself, and the valley overflows with the sound. A sound, the poet says, more welcome than the chant of a nightingale at dusk, and more thrilling than the song of a cuckoo in springtime. Then the poet asks, will no one tell me what she sings? Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow for old, unhappy, far-off things and battles long ago. Or is it some more humble lay, familiar matter of today? Some natural sorrow, loss, or pain that has been and may be again. I listened, motionless and still, and as I mounted up the hill, the music in my heart I bore, till after it was heard no more. Sometimes music reminds us of old things from long ago. At other times it calls to mind a familiar matter of today. If we listen, we'll know what song resounds within us. We'll carry the music in our hearts long after the sounds fade away. The composer Sergei Rachmaninoff was the last great figure of Russian Romanticism. Driven out of Russia by the Russian Revolution of 1917, Rachmaninoff spent the final 25 years of his life in exile, dividing his time between Switzerland and the United States. Though peerless as a concert pianist during this period, his composing slowed to a trickle. He missed his homeland desperately.